Hello, world. Today we're going to make a video talking about some internet drama that's really kind of stupid, to be honest. But we're going to talk about it anyways. That's Kyle.
And that is Cody. It would, be absolutely indicative of the fact that we are millennials, and all of this started on Facebook. A Facebook drama, ultimately revolving around a, I guess, pseudoscience documentary is how I would label it, known as the pandemic. Uh, and there was basically some back and forth between Cody and the person we're going to be talking about today, Andrew Lordson, the content creator whose YouTube channel is Heavyweights Light Feels. So, once again, all this started on Facebook, revolving around this little back and forth between these guys. And ultimately, this did actually lead to some fairly cordial correspondence between me and Andrew. After which we actually set up some face to face video interactions. And we actually created, in my opinion, some pretty good content in which we actually had, productive discourse. You can actually go back and view our videos on his channel or our channel, specifically the videos titled Forms of Government, Post-Capitalism, and Communism, question mark. Um, but after that communism video that we did together, me and Andrew had sort of a falling out. He posted a video where he asked me to leave him alone. I did a reaction to that, and that is basically where the conflict between us sort of ended, and our discourse in general. Uh, and recently, he got back into content creation, and I commented on one of his videos, and that is what is leading us to our current beef.
So I wish you had explained like I thought you were going to, because you took the first part a time scale, at least like once or maybe a little bit. But the pandemic came out at the beginning of COVID. And so that all happened a very long time ago, as far as I'm concerned. And by that all happening, I'm talking about the initial correspondence between Andrew and myself on Facebook. It was very short. It was about that subject specifically. And he cut it off immediately by blocking me on Instagram, Facebook, and every other form of social media that we could use to communicate. I also have told you that it's not really my prerogative to get into like the YouTube comments of his videos. And so I'm not going to use that as a means of communicating with him. Whereas the face to face conversations, DMs through Instagram or Facebook, any of these I'd actually be willing to open up as the starting of a dialogue again with this person. But this is, 3 years later. And you actually mentioned you and Andrew have had much more fruitful conversations within like the 3 years since that's passed. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just to sort of feed off of what you were saying and be as sympathetic as possible towards you. Um, I have been, as of recently, making it known when I am posting comments on his videos, because he has had the understandable uh, conflation of me and you. And basically, when he sees the Brothers Blue YouTube channel commenting on his videos, he doesn't know who it is, and he shouldn't honestly be held like to blame for that. And that is why I am going to for lack of a better word, continue to troll him
Yeah.
in the comments of his videos because
Right.
one like the avenues of communication have basically been cut off.
Right. Even for you at this point. And so that's the thing about the comments and you specifying yourself is both Andrew and I deserve the benefit of the doubt. And that's the thing is like you can't really blame him because he doesn't know. And you can't also blame me for, you know, when Andrew says Cody in his videos, I'm like, dude, please don't say my name. So yeah.
And I mean, it's gonna be really hard not to take it personally when he says your name. It's like you're literally doing the personal thing. So
well, now I can. So anyways, I'm down to get started on my notes if you're okay with that.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about that I took notes on was your guys' last extended conversation, which was the communism video. And man, he says the word fascism so many times, and it's in my notes so many times that I'm going to have to ask yourself and the 4 people that watch this video to forgive me for saying that word an exorbitant amount of times. Shoot, where's those next? They're right here. So, anyways, as usual, you guys start off very cordial, and it's something that both of you even mentioned, and you're like, this isn't how we're supposed to be. We have differing views. People like this are generally vitriolic, which you guys weren't in the beginning. You guys start off very cordial, which is nice. And then we get into your main point, which is about the American political spectrum and the American political spectrum being skewed. And that, I think, while it is one of your main points, is one of the things that maybe fails to land with Andrew as much as we kind of wish it would, because the fact that the American political spectrum is skewed to the right the way it is affects everything in our lives. So, like, I mean, it's just hard to ignore, and it's a very relative fact. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I honestly don't know. Oh, well, like when you think about it, it kind of all starts to make sense because there is no actual incentive for corporate media to promote or really just even give airtime to like progressive ideas. So there is no left wing media in the United States. CNN, MSNBC, all these companies still have corporate profit structures, which are going to ultimately mean that they're not going to like promote progressive policies or progressive politicians. So yeah, and like this is just a simple like obvious fact of how the Overton window in the United States, the political spectrum, has been shifted right. And it's just like people don't care about it or like don't know.
yeah. And one thing that I failed to talk about with you the other day that I wish maybe I'd done a little more research into before this conversation is how instrumental Newt Gingrich was in that process. And that's what we talked about before, actually. And because you mentioned Congress in the decades previous, the
it's democratic control in Congress.
Exactly, for decades, and what are sometimes viewed as the most prosperous decades in American history, we had a Democratic controlled Congress.
Yeah.
In the 80s, Newt Gingrich, not only did he, I think, flip the House and help flip the House, but the idea of the Republicans in the 80s was not policy driven. It was, let's stop anything that comes through. Any legislation that comes through at all, just vote no. I don't care if it's a pro-life bill that we love. We're still not. We're just obstructing everything. The obstructionist ideas or like I guess basis of where Congress started to shift in the 80s. It started with that, and it really sucks.
So it's funny that you brought up the chronological thing earlier because like you said in the 80s and it was like, okay, well, Newt Gingrich and the Republican Revolution, which it was literally called, was 1994. The 80s was Reagan. And like absolutely, like it was Reagan, and but like Newt Gingrich in 94 was basically when the Republicans had been kicked out for a second by these new Democrats. And then the new Democrats basically folded to the Republicans because Newt Gingrich and the Republican Revolution was so powerful. And that is, once again, feeding into that general shift towards the right.
All right. Yes. Which is the basis of that argument about the political spectrum. Then you guys talk about true progressives and like kind of what that is. And that again, I think is something that I clearly understand and you clearly understand. Like the true progressives of nowadays are like Bernie and Ilhan and you know those people. And the true progressives of 100 years ago were Teddy Roosevelt and the people of his ilk. And so that's what a progressive is. And it's what is it? It's like we want social programs, but like at the same time, individual freedom is still important, but at the same time, people should be able to rely on a community or society if they need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, um,
No, I mean, if you really want me to get into the progressive era, honestly, you probably don't want to because it'll just be a history lesson. And I'll talk about how William Jennings Bryan was like the ultimate populist, but like he ran for president so many times and never became president. He did become Secretary of State at one point, which, as you know, is an incredibly powerful position. Yes. So
yep.
he
Yeah.
and that was the thing is like uh just like Bernie Sanders didn't like achieve a whole lot electorally, William Jennings Bryan, he was like the most famous and popular politician of that era outside of like Teddy Roosevelt. Like
So,
that's the thing is like when you look back on that era, like it really was a lot about that.
like a true legislator,
Well,
guy
not
who got stuff done, or no?
I don't know if he had a congressional career, to be totally honest. I think he may have served as a justice
Okay.
as well. But yeah, William Jennings Bryan. I honestly don't know much about his political career except for the fact that he ran for president a bunch of times and served at one point as Secretary of State. I don't know if he was a master legislator like LBJ or FDR.
Right. That's what I thought you were comparing.
No, that's not the point I was making. I was making the point that like Bernie Sanders, dude, Bernie was so popular and was literally killed by.
Yeah, but Bernie's gotten a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, kind of. I
Uh,
mean,
well, I would say for his state, maybe at least. I don't know. I don't live there, so actually, that's a completely uh, unfounded statement. Anyways, also just and we don't even really need to talk about it that long, but then he's like, "Oh yeah, you remind me of Dave Rubin," and I think that's a compliment. So I also would not view that as a compliment. I don't think his content is stuff that is worthy. I don't even watch it, to be honest with you. I don't watch
in
it.
our conversation, I did not take it as a compliment.
Yeah, so it's not.
It's
And
really actually kind of interesting. Ruben and like honestly, like the right wing independent media is kind of you don't probably know this, but Steven Crowder is like going through so much. I know you know who Steven Crowder is. Do you know anything about what he's going through?
no, can you please give me a short? But yes, I'd like to know
No, I
because
don't even
Steven
want to.
Crowder is.
Don't need to get into it.
Oh, okay.
I'm
He
just
is one
making
of the
the point
people
that in
that,
general, right wing independent media is kind of like a dumpster fire. Like Jordan Peterson's on the Daily Wire now, and he like makes videos where he's crying, and it's like, all right, what? And
yeah.
Steven Crowder's going through a bunch of shit, and it's like, yeah, right wing independent media.
So, anyways, what I was trying to say is that Steven Crowder is probably the person on the right that I dislike the most. Like, that's the thing is like, I don't like Dave, or I don't like Ben Shapiro. I don't like Dave Rubin. Dude, you brought Jordan Peterson. The fact that he's on the Daily Wire, is that Ben Shapiro's or Alex Jones's thing?
Yeah, no, it's Ben Shapiro's.
Right. And so Alex Jones is InfoWars. Yeah. So Alex Jones, crazy. Jordan Peterson, crazy. Ben Shapiro, he's at least kind of smart, but his views are very skewed.
He has a degree from Harvard Law.
Yeah, exactly. And Steven Crowder tries to play like he's smart. And honestly, I look at him as like a college radio DJ who was overprivileged and got famous somehow.
Yeah. I don't have anything good to say about him. Like, I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna look up.
Kind of interesting that you don't know about what's going on with him.
Well, that's because I've kind of taken a backseat to
Yeah.
consuming any kind of politics, which I'm gonna start doing again. But at the
No,
same time,
sorry.
no, that's the thing is like I go to that one website, it's townhall.com. It has tons of articles from the craziest of the crazies. It has Ann Coulter, it has Ben Shapiro, it has
Yeah.
Prager, it writes for them. Everyone writes for them. So
Yeah. I just think it's funny that you said specifically that thing about Steven Crowder, and it's like he's on a downward trajectory. Like,
I need to look into this. Yeah, I would like to.
yeah, it's
All right. So
almost gone.
one of my main notes here is again, this is you guys. I feel like the reason I make these main notes is because I feel like it's something that you talk about more than once. And so you guys argue about there not being a left wing party in America. And Andrew doesn't really argue. He does kind of, and because you list like the 5 people that are part of maybe the DSA, and like that's the thing is that you guys do plenty of this, but you don't do enough of mentioning the fact that the Democrats of America are a centrist party. That's what we said. They're a centrist party that I guess leans left, but like the Democrats in America are not a left wing party, and you guys don't really talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's because you have to at that point basically be talking about things on a global or international scale, and once you start talking about that, he immediately goes into globalist conspiracy stuff. So yeah, I know how these conversations are going to go generally. And I have ways that I try to steer them in certain directions.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that is a big one when it comes to global and international geopolitics, is what I call it.
I think a good example of you taking the conversation of where you want it to and not letting it get derailed is the Facebook comment. And so, like, you do specifically mention that, the idea of Facebook being this left wing platform is a false idea. That's just not true. Like,
yeah,
Facebook is not a left wing platform. Sorry if you think it is, because you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I actually saw a study that was about like literally the exact opposite. Like it did a simulation of just opening a Facebook profile, and it basically said exactly that. That the exact opposite. That like if you just like and like do random normal shit on Facebook, it's going to lean to the right. So yeah, it was just like it was a weird simulation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, so let me get through this, just because
Yeah.
I can see the timer too. And so you guys talk about one thing, and he brings this up all the time: good versus evil. And my note here is that, and we've talked about this, and you agree, is that it's very absolutist the way he views the whole good versus evil thing. And like he kind of paints it to where like there's no gray area, and in my opinion that like means like it's binary as well. But yeah, let's not get bogged down in the words. I think that there probably is a gray area when it comes to good and evil, but maybe not.
No, when it comes to getting bogged down in words, the one I like to use is nuance. It's like, so you just don't allow for nuance in anything. And I actually learned, well, I've argued like uh the value and validity literally of that word itself, nuance. So yeah, that's
It's a weird word.
yeah, there's a lot going on with the word nuance.
All right. So another thing, and this is my thing about watching your guys' stuff, is I'm like, just say this thing because it's what you need to say. And in my opinion, you guys are leaving out the most important part, which is capitalism. And this is the thing, because I think this is where Andrew will disagree and it will cause friction, because if you add capitalism to the end of this statement, the one that we all agree on, neoliberal globalism, we all said that, right? Even if he thinks it's a guise for the culture war or whatever, I don't really understand. Neoliberal global capitalism is the prevailing system, and the largest communist country in the world participates in our capitalist system. It's global and it's also neoliberal, but it's capitalist.
So Andrew like experiences actual cognitive dissonance, and it's funny because that is something he loves to accuse the left of all the time. And it's literally like whenever you say anything about capitalism, he goes into automatic simp mode where he like nothing, capitalism can do no wrong. Like
yeah, exactly.
It's never done anything bad. And if it did do something bad, then that wasn't capitalism. So yeah, he straight up experiences like cognitive dissonance on this topic. And you actually, dude, I can point it out in many of his videos where he literally does that.
Yeah. It's like I don't know if this is the correct term to like apply to that for him, but it's like a dog whistle. Like he hears it and he just goes insane. That's what I mean. If
That's not how dog whistles dog
right,
whistles politically are like you say something that triggers something else without actually saying it.
Oh yeah, right. And that's the thing, is you actually say it, I guess. But yeah, if you say capitalism, it triggers Andrew. Sorry. I hate the word.
No, it is a cognitive dissonance thing.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyways, throughout the video, there's a very loose usage of the word fascism. And so then it actually gets into you explaining why fascism is not the prevailing system, because we are in more of what is a global authoritarian system. And that's because, yes, the authoritarian part is somewhat fascistic, right? By nature.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's global
is authoritarian.
But fascism is also nationalist, and so therefore it cannot be globalist. So it's just antithetical, I think, is what you said.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. No, and that's what it is. But anyways, the thing also about January 6th is like, and me and you aren't going to sit here and be stupid and call Donald Trump a fascist because, yes, he has fascistic tendencies, probably more so than Biden, arguable. But the fact is, January 6th proved that we don't live in a fascist system because the coup did not work.
Yeah.
Dictator that wanted to try to keep control of the country was not able to, and power successfully transitioned to the next president.
Yeah, and what's ridiculous is that is the peaceful transition of power is a principle of democracy. And our good friend that we are talking about literally made a video like today, where his basic argument is that democracy leads to tyranny, or yeah, exactly. So yeah, yep, yeah.
Yeah. It's just the thing is like if you don't agree and that's the thing is like I think if you said the word community, he would have a tough time with that one because I think he likes the idea of community, but I don't think he likes things being communal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's probably a tough one for him.
yeah.
Got any more notes?
Yes, actually, just a little bit. And it's actually my final one for this video. And it's basically, again, this comes down to you have arguments that you try to put forth throughout the video, and you do a good job, in my opinion, of explaining them. And then not only that, you do your best to keep it cordial when you differ in opinion and try to rebut or refute something he says. And so one of the things that he always comes back to is the whole like shadow games culture war thing, which like really makes me confused. So I wonder if he's also confused about it too, because like at one point it seems like the more important part is the neoliberal control system that is like in place to hide the culture war, or the culture war sometimes is the thing that's at the forefront to hide what's actually going on. So
Yeah.
I really don't.
Well, no. So like this is basically comes down to it's like, okay, so you're worried about like NATO and the
Yeah,
G7 and the World Economic Forum and all this, but then it's trans people's fault.
right. Yeah,
That's basically their argument.
yeah.
Sorry.
No.
To straw man them, but
Yeah.
once again, like, dude, that is so funny. Like, every time he has mentioned a logical fallacy, he's just like wildly incorrect. And I brought them up like once or twice in our interactions, and I'm pretty sure I kind of got them accurately.
Yeah, and actually the logical fallacy thing is something that I want to talk about when we talk about something else that I have in my notes. But because of the timer, what I'm going to say is this is the last bit that I wanted to talk about for that video, which is the communism video, which you guys should go watch. That's Kyle and Andrew. And the next one that I want to talk about is the Leave Me Alone meltdown video, and then we can build from there.
Yeah, because yeah, no, that sounds good.
All right, great. People, remember, knowledge is power. Have a good one.